So now let's have a look at some of the drawing tools within Flash. So first one we've got is the line tool, and it pretty much speaks for itself. You click and you drag and you get a straight line. You can of course adjust what colour the stroke is, black, change it to whatever you like. So I'll have a red line. You can adjust the weight of the line, so I could make it 10 points thick like that. Change that back. You can have dash lines, all sorts of things like that. You can custom make the lines. That will also alter any of the other settings for any of the other shapes. So for instance with the circle tool or the pen tool, I can have a dashed line and so on and so forth. The pen tool is the next drawing tool that we have, and simply I select the pen tool, I click on the page, always just one click to start with, and then I can click anywhere in any sort of way, and I can just click on the black arrow, and there you go, I've got that type of line. Right, I'll just delete that a second. If however I click on the pen tool, and to show you this a bit more, I'll change the fill to be bright red. I'll click on the pen tool and I will just go anywhere, and when I go back to the point that I started, the pen has a small circle beside it. This means you're going to complete the shape. So I click there, and now click on the black arrow. I have a totally filled in shape that's bright red with a black line around it. Okay, so that is with the pen tool. I can also use the pen tool to create curved lines with a bit more control than I could with, say, the pencil or the paintbrush. So again, one click gives me that. This time, however, click and drag the mouse in the direction you want to go in. So you can see that as a result this is now curved. If I then click here, I can click and drag in the way I want to go, so on and so forth, and I can get this curved bendy line. Right? There is no real way to explain the pen tool. It is more a case, I would suggest, that you have to practice with it to get the hang of it. Right. Again, I've just completed the shape, and that is the shape that I now have. I can, however, adjust points of that shape. Say for instance there's a particular corner I'm not happy with. If I click on the white arrow, the sub-selection tool, right, and go over and find a point where I have a curve, say I click there, you can see the white arrow's got a black square by it. That means I've selected the line. If I go over to one of the points, that turns to a white square. So I click that, and that means I can adjust that curve. I can pull that anchor point out, I can pull that one in, so it's only got one curve. Right. Again, this takes some playing with to get used to. But there you have basic pen tool and the basic editing of the pen tool. So I'll get rid of that. Next, there's the oval tool, which is just to draw simple circular shapes. Yeah. If I held down the shift key, however, I get a perfect circle, right, every time, regardless of what the size is. Again, like I mentioned before, you could change the thickness of the line, so I've got a thick black line on my circle, or I could have it with the dotted line feature. That's all sorts of things we can do with the circle, with the oval tool, sorry. Right. Another one, I've actually changed it, is the rectangle tool. Exactly the same thing. You'll notice the settings, however, are already changed. I didn't change them back, so you've got to be careful that you do that if you don't want something to have a dashed line that you previously did. So I can draw rectangular shapes. If, again, I wanted a perfect square shape, I hold down the shift key and I'm guaranteed a perfect square. So that's the rectangle tool. If though I click on this little black triangle by the square tool, it means there's another option to this tool. So I click on it and I have the polystar tool, which is basically a polygon. Gives me a polygon. There's no need to hold the shift key in this case because it's always going to be even. However, in the properties panel we have some options where we can decide how many sides it has. So I'm put in something ridiculous, put that to 20. I could change it to a star, so I draw a star shape, and there we go, I have a 20 pointed star, almost like new and improved. So that's that. I'll get rid of all them. The pencil tool is, again, currently I've got the stroke set to black, so I can just draw with the pencil tool. I personally don't like the pencil tool because you don't have the control that you do with the pen, and I'm not particularly good with drawing freehand with a mouse. So that was me drawing with the pencil tool. However, down here you have the options to whether you should have a smooth line or a straight line. So if I change that to straightened line, if I curve it a bit, you'll see this should go all jagged, because Flash has sort of said, no, let's jaggle this up because we've got it set to straight line. If I change it to just show you the other option, incline, and just draw, there you go. Incline is almost a halfway house between smooth and straightened line. The paintbrush is literally, I can just paint on the page. Now that happened because I didn't have it set, the option set to paint normal. So paint normal is just paint with the paintbrush. I can adjust the size and so on. Right. However, there are other options I could have. I could paint the fills, so I'm only painting the fill of an object, or paint behind an object, or paint inside an object. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. If I create a circle and then I click on the paintbrush, I'll change the colour to blue so you can see a difference. I set that to paint inside, and then I click inside this object. The paint should only go, if I go out the edge, it should only stay within that object. Right? I'll just change it to another colour. I'll change it to that horrible green colour, and I'll show you paint behind. So I could therefore go like this, right across, but it should only seem behind. So that's with the paintbrush. I'll just get rid of that. One final thing you should be aware of in Flash is if I was to draw, say, this circle, right, and then I'll click on the polygon tool and I will change the colour, and I will, I've still got that set to start, and I drew that shape. Then I was to double click to select my object and move it away. It cuts out the previous shape I've drawn. There's no way to avoid it doing that. However, if I wanted to fill that colour back in again, I click on the eyedropper tool to select that colour. It automatically turns to the paint bucket, and I click and fill in that white space. So now I've got my filled in shape back. Again, with the drawing tool, there's another thing. If I go near the line, you can see the black arrow is turned to have a little curved line by it. I can therefore just click once, and I'm only selecting the outline to remove. Just undo that. If I double click on the object, you probably can't see on that green, so I'll do it on the red. You can see that it's dashed. I've got this dotted pattern within the pattern, and that's me. I've selected the whole object. I could just select one click in the fill, and I've only got the fill, or like I said before, one click only within the line. I could click and drag with the black arrow tool, and I only take a section of it. Right? So there's lots of things you could do with the various tools. I'll just double click to select all of that shape, because the one last thing I'd like to show you with the drawing tool is the free transform tool, where I could resize, scale, I could skew it, alter it in any real way that I wished, go to a corner and rotate it, so on and so forth. So there's loads of ways to play about with the shape tool, and that is some of the basic ways you can draw and fill in and colour, etc. in Flash.